All right. So when it comes to freelancing on Upwork, the idea of getting your first $1,000 in earnings to a lot of freelancers can feel overwhelming or even impossible, but it's actually fairly straightforward once you know what to do. And so in this podcast, we're going to talk about how we made our first $1,000 relatively quickly and how that first $1,000 is going to set you up for your next $1,000, your next $5,000, and then hopefully eventually your first $100,000 on Upwork. So let's talk about the very first thing that you got to do to make your first $1,000 on Upwork. And that's actually going to be before you create your profile and before you actually start bidding on jobs, you need to take a step back and really think about, how do I want to position myself in the market? So, Jessica, when you started your Upwork journey and you wanted to win those first few clients and start getting some money on your profile, how did you think about how to position yourself before you even started bidding on jobs?
When I first started on Upwork, I decided to specialize in social media management for two reasons. First reason is I had some experience working with past clients and I had a few portfolio pieces. And the second reason is I noticed that there was a blue ocean on Upwork. I did research, I looked for competitors, and at the time, there were not many social media managers, which is kind of funny because it seems like everybody and their mother is a social media manager now. But at the time, that seemed like a great opportunity to specialize in social media management. And I think that's why I got traction, because I was one of the first movers in terms of that specific service. And let's not forget, I had the track record. So I knew what I was doing, and therefore high value clients saw my expertise and then they wanted to work with me.
Yeah, and obviously it's not only about having the skills, but you have to market those skills in terms of the way that you present your profile. So it's not just about picking the right niche and deciding that's the niche that you want to go after. You have to do a whole lot of things on the back end and in terms of tailoring your profile to look like that expert before you actually are going to get any traction. But in terms of how Jessica decided to go into that particular specialty, she did some research. She saw that she was competitive in that specialty, and you can only determine that yourself, right? You have to go onto Upwork and you have to look at your competition. You have to look at an area or a market that you're interested in maybe going after, and then you have to be the objective observer of your competition. You have to look at their profiles, look at other freelancers and see what they're charging. Look at the best freelancers and see what they're charging, because your competition isn't really every other freelancer that's in your specialty, right? Because the way that we see it is you need to be going after the high value clients only. Anyone that's not a high value client is someone that you can leave for the rest of the low end freelancers. So you should really only be comparing yourself to the upper echelons of freelancers in that specialty that you are interested in potentially going after.
So I'll be honest, like if I was a freelancer starting out on Upwork right now, I would not go into social media because social media management has become insanely saturated. Yes, perhaps if you work really, really hard, you work really smartly, you might be able to rise to the top in terms of the top echelon and be that premium choice within the social media management niche. But let's be honest, right? AI is coming in, replacing a lot of these basic tasks when it comes to social media management. And so, as a freelancer, you can't just put your head in the sand. You got to be able to recognize, okay, AI is going to probably wipe out and replace a lot of those basic functions, but that's okay. That is okay because as a premium freelancer, you want to deliver more value anyways, right? And the goal is to provide as much value as possible so that you are in that premium bucket when it comes to freelancers. And so a client wouldn't even think, oh, I'm going to replace you with like AI, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So the way I would throw it back to you on that is, yeah, AI can do all the things that social media managers used to do. But guess what? The best social media managers that are making over $100 an hour today, they can focus their time on the high leverage activities of social media in terms of content creation. They can think at a higher level and offer a more high level service, because now instead of spending all their billable hours on posting things and scheduling things, now they can spend that same amount of time on more important tasks like coming up with content ideas, coming up with ideas that aren't complete AI slop. I mean, I think we've all seen just this deluge of like massive AI slop. And so I would kind of push back on that idea that you can't be a high level social media manager. I think that the people that make good money in social media today, they're not offering scheduling as their value proposition. They are just able to be way more productive by using AI as a tool, but also by offering services that are a cut above what AI can offer, especially as it comes to content and creativity and things like that.
I agree. I agree with everything that you just said. AI is a tool. It is a tool, and used appropriately, used correctly, you can leverage it, right? Especially if you are a premium freelancer, you can leverage it to be more efficient in your day-to-day work. Completely agree with that. However, like, I'm a marketing consultant, so I work with a variety of different clients, and I'll just be honest, the first thing to go is usually social media. And it's been really interesting to be in those conversations when it comes to businesses, revenue, like, we're talking numbers here. Social media is the first to go. And so I think not only is social media oversaturated, so I would be hesitant to choose social media as a niche if you're a freelancer in 2025. But also, there's a lack of value to the bottom line of a business. And that's a really, really important point, because your longevity with a client is only going to go so far if you cannot positively impact the revenue of a business.
100%. So again, I know we're talking about social media as a potential specialty, but I would posit that when you're thinking about how to position yourself and what lane you want to be in when it comes to freelancing on Upwork, you need to find a way or be creative or think about deeply, how can I offer the most value with my skill set? And so, 5 years ago, you used to be able to offer a lot of value by scheduling posts, being that person that would handle all of the social media stuff, logistics type stuff. But now that AI is automating a lot of that, it's no longer valuable to clients to have someone manage their social media. What they need now is content that actually converts. So my opinion on this is that you can choose any specialty that you want as long as you can provide a super high value proposition. So that this stage of your journey is where you need to do a lot of research. You need to do a lot of introspection on your skill set. And you just need to make sure that before you create your profile, you know what lane you can be competitive in and that you can provide a ton of value in.
So I'm not trying to bash social media managers. I'm just calling out a very real thing that's happening in terms of social media oversaturation. But if we chose another example, like a web developer, right? AI has a lot of software websites where you can literally create a website just using AI. So, what does that do for web developers? So, for the low value freelancers, I don't know, maybe they keep doing the race to the bottom, but for high value freelancers, they recognize, okay, AI is assisting here. Maybe we can use AI to make the website design more efficient. And therefore, then they can start thinking about the conversion rate. What are people doing when they land on the website? How can I be more valuable and associate my value with the bottom line of a business? So you can kind of see from both of those examples, using AI as a tool that can make you work with clients in a more efficient way, and then just being very aware of the saturation when it comes to choosing your specialty.
Yeah, so this initial stage of your journey to $1,000 earned on Upwork is all about kind of taking a step back, thinking deeply about the market, doing competitor research, thinking about what your ideal customer looks like, and really finding a lane that you can be confident that you can provide a lot of value in. So once you've decided kind of what your lane is, what your ideal customer looks like, and you feel confident that you can be in that top 20% compared to your competition, go ahead and make your profile and you're ready to move on to step two, which is really all about the presentation of your profile, which is critically important to your ability to make that first $1,000.
So you could be the best of the best freelancer, the goat of your freelancing niche. But if your presentation does not come through on Upwork, you're doing something wrong. A client has to be able to look over your profile and be like, wow, they are a cut above the rest. I can tell by just their profile photo, the description, the reviews, the portfolio. Like, this is a premium freelancer, and that's what you should always be striving for. I know Tyler and I have talked about this point system when it comes to your Upwork profile, where like each aspect of your profile is worth several points. And so you have to think about it like that, right? Maybe the goal is 10 points in total, and your profile video is 2 points, your description is 3 points. Like, if every detail of your profile is not the best that it can be, well, there's your homework right there. That's exactly what you should be working on. So it's obvious to your clients that you are the premium option.
Yeah. So when we think about how I actually got my first project, which ended up being, I think it was worth $200 or $300 or something like that. Um, I had no reviews on my profile. Okay. I had no work history. I had nothing. All I had was my portfolio, my profile photo, my profile video, which was actually my demo reel, my description, all of these little elements that I had to work with before I actually had some job history. And so what I did was I just made sure that every single one of those things on my profile was me. It was Tyler, and exuded quality and exuded and highlighted my skill set, which I knew when I joined the website that I knew my skill set and my portfolio was definitely in the top 20%, if not the top 10% of my competition. And then, especially if you look at it in terms of the region, because I know some of us have skills that are actually valuable to specific local regions, especially, where you live. So I knew that, especially in that area, I was in the top 10% of people in my skill set. And so I really basically just sat down and, took my time on everything, took my time on putting my portfolio together, making sure there was the best videos I could put on there, making sure my description felt elevated, making sure my profile photo was really good. Got to have an amazing profile photo, and really just took the time before I even started submitting proposals, to make sure my profile exuded quality. And because you're never going to make that first $1,000 if you don't put in the effort to make your profile look like it deserves $1,000. So I always think of the word congruency. Does your profile, if you're trying to be a freelancer that charges, let's say, $500 on average per project, and hopefully that's not a very long project if you want to make $500, but let's say you want to make $500 on average per project, you always need to ask yourself, is my profile congruent with a freelancer that deserves to make $500 per project? And, a lot of times what I see when I'm looking at other profiles on Upwork is that there's a lack of congruency in terms of the presentation and the standard of quality. It could be their profile photo. If you don't have a profile photo that is congruent with the idea of a high level freelancer, that is all it's going to take for you to lose out on opportunities, to lose out on those really critical first projects. So always be thinking, is this profile photo congruent with a high level freelancer? Are these thumbnails that I'm putting in my portfolio, are they congruent with someone who charges $500, $1,000 per project? It's crazy to me how many profiles I come across that have the cheapest looking thumbnails in their portfolio. And I don't mean to rag on Fiverr, but when you go on Fiverr, those thumbnails, to me, they look cheap. They look hodgepodge, bad fonts, bad just overall design. And so all of those things matter when you're trying to get traction on Upwork. And when I look at your portfolio, I want to see something that's clean and elevated rather than anything that looks cheap. If it looks cheap, you're not going to be able to make that first $1,000.
That's actually a really good point and something us as freelancers need to be really mindful of, right? And I hear the excuse. The main excuse is, well, I'm so busy with client work, I don't have time to update my Upwork profile, or I don't have time to update my website. Like, I don't have time because I'm doing the client work. Well, that's how you stay in this cycle of feast and famine. And I think it's something that I'm also guilty of this as well, is taking time, whether that's once a month, once a quarter, to making sure your Upwork profile and your website are the best that they can be. You're refreshing creative, you're updating whatever you need to do to make sure it still is congruent with your pricing and with the level of service that you're providing.
And as you're going through your Upwork profile and making sure that it is dialed in and beautiful, this is another part of the stage where you might, if you have freelance clients off of Upwork, there's no reason why you shouldn't at least attempt to get them to hire you on the platform. And the reason for that is obviously they already know, like, and trust you. And so a lot of the times they'll be totally open to hiring you on Upwork and then helping you get that work history, helping you get that first 5-star review, and just sort of establishing yourself as someone that already provides and has proof that you can deliver for real world clients with real world budgets. And, another thing I'll say in this stage is like a lot of freelancers, when they join Upwork, their very first instinct is to get into a very competitive scarcity mindset, which tells them like, okay, if I want to get traction, I need to lower my prices to the absolute rock bottom. And then I need to send out as many proposals as I possibly can to as many jobs as I possibly can. And I would highly encourage you to not take that approach and take the selective approach, because when we talk about congruency, how is it congruent if you're trying to make, like, I'll take an example. If you're trying to make $500 on average per project, or maybe $2,000, or whatever the price is, hopefully it's an elevated price. Hopefully it's a premium price. If you're trying to make that premium pricing work and be a thing for you, and you have been working for pennies on the dollar up until this point, then potential high value clients are going to go to your profile. They're going to look at your work history and they're going to be able to see what you're charging. And if they see that you've been charging less than $100 for a project, less than $50, $25 project here, $20 project there, that is not congruent with a high level freelancer. And so, and yes, you can hide your earnings, but if you're hiding your earnings, all that really tells me is you're not making much. So let's just be honest, like, no one who's making good money is hiding their earnings, because high earnings is the ultimate social proof. So yes, you can hide your earnings on those jobs, but everyone knows that's just because you're not making a lot of money. And again, if you're trying to win projects at bottom dollar rates, it's not going to be congruent with someone that wants to charge high rates.
And I mean, that's the trap. That is the Upwork trap. You create an Upwork profile and then you see all the low prices, you see this race to the bottom, and then you get really depressed about it, and then you give up, and then you try to find clients off of Upwork, right? That is the trap on Upwork. And so what came to mind for me is like, to avoid that trap, right? Keep your 9 to 5. Keep your 9 to 5, get a part-time job, do what you got to do to pay the bills so you're not falling into this trap of a race to the bottom, because it's just not going to end well, right? You're not going to make any money. You're going to work with low value clients, and it's going to show eventually on your Upwork profile. So do what you have to do financially, make sure you are covered, and just experiment with Upwork in a really smart, strategic way so you're not falling into that trap. I think this is something that not a lot of people talk about, but it's this idea of working smarter versus harder. If you have happy clients outside of Upwork, and you just know that they would move the moon for you, if that's even a saying. They are a gold mine for you. You can ask them, utilize that goodwill, right? Utilize that great partnership that you have with them, and then ask them to come on Upwork. And again, it doesn't have to be this ongoing project. You could just bring them on for a few projects here and there to bolster up your Upwork profile, right? You show them exactly what to do. I've created Loom videos. I've created Google Docs, literally showing my clients step by step. Here's how to create a project. Here's how to hire me. Here's how to pay me. So there's no questions in their mind. Again, I don't want to make extra work for my clients. So I try to make it as easy as possible. And then Upwork's happy. Upwork's happy because you brought new income onto the platform and then they get a percentage of that. So you don't have to grind it out if you have some leverage in your back pocket. If you have happy clients and you know a client would do that for you, there's no harm in bringing them on to Upwork so you can get some glowing reviews on there.
Exactly. And I'm always talking about where is your unfair advantage? You should always be looking at your life, looking at your skills, looking at your equipment, and thinking about where do I have an unfair advantage compared to most people? What random skills do I have that I've acquired over the years? And hopefully, as you age, you get more of these skills that you can start stacking on top of each other. And so, again, for me, one of my unfair advantages was, hey, I've got a bunch of video equipment, super high end video equipment sitting in my closet because I'm a videographer. So why don't I lean into video production to help myself stand out on Upwork? So that what that means is I'm going to create an amazing profile video, and that profile video is going to separate me from everyone else. And so again, always thinking about what makes you unique. Uniqueness is the name of the game. Humans want to work with humans. We don't want to work with someone that just uses ChatGPT all day and creates content that looks like everyone else's AI slop content. We want to work with humans. So you need to lean into what makes you unique and where are your unfair advantages compared to everyone else.
Here's the thing. A competitive advantage can be as big as you want or as small as you want. Like, I'll give you a small example. For me, I'm very organized and I'm very structured. So when I'm sending clients agendas, recaps, I'm keeping the ship running, I'm keeping things really organized. I consider that a competitive advantage for myself because I don't think everyone else is that structured. But like, that's really small. Like, the fact that I'm sending agendas and recaps, that's such a small thing, but it's a competitive advantage. It is a competitive advantage because I can guarantee you my competitors might not think to do that. So again, it could be as big as you want or it can be as small as you want as long as it's a competitive advantage.
Okay, so hopefully that gives you kind of our perspective on how to think about the profile step when it comes to making your first $1,000 on Upwork. The next step is going to be obviously to go out there and actually win your first couple projects at a rate that isn't cut rate. I will encourage you to watch our last podcast, which is all about how to avoid bad clients on Upwork. And I think when it comes to making your first $1,000, a lot of this stuff comes down to just being in the game and not getting frustrated and not getting burned by bad clients. And you can make your first $1,000 in your first project. I mean, we're talking about a relatively small amount of money here, but when it comes to avoiding bad clients, we have a whole podcast on that, and I highly encourage you watching that because in our opinion, avoiding bad clients is as important, if not more important, than winning good clients when it comes to Upwork. So watch that and then go ahead and get out there and win your first paid Upwork project.
So you landed the client. Amazing. I mean, that deserves a round of applause. But now you have a very real job. You have to over deliver so that you can get that 5-star review. And you just got to look for creative ways to build that rapport, to show the client, hey, you're on their team and you will do whatever it takes to get that 5-star review. And trust me, it does not have to be this elaborate thing. It can really just be paying attention to what your client is saying. So, a few easy examples would be delivering whatever that deliverable is a few days ahead of schedule, right? Catches the client off guard. They're very pleased. They're like, oh, wow, awesome. Just little tiny things like that. Maybe you hear them and they're like, oh, it'd be really nice if we could do XYZ or something. Maybe you throw in a couple extra graphics or throw in a couple extra edits for them. Like, it doesn't have to be this daunting task to over deliver for the client. It can really just be listening to them and figuring out what would be helpful for them. How can I go above and beyond in small little ways that mean something to the client?
Yeah, I mean, these initial projects that you win with clients, I was so damn nervous when I won my first project because I knew this is going to set the foundation for the next project and the next project and the next project. So I'm going to give this project, regardless of how much it's actually worth, even if it's a $200, $300 project, I am going to give this project as much of my focus and attention, and I'm going to over deliver just so I can make sure that I get that 5-star review. Because a lot of freelancers, they're okay with not getting that review and just having it say no feedback given. But in my opinion, your first 3 to 5 projects, you got to get those 5-star reviews. And even better than just 5 stars, you want them to write something about you. You want them to talk about who you are and talk about what their experience was like. I'd argue that seeing them write something about you makes that review twice as valuable than if it was just stars. You really, really want them to feel emotionally motivated that you delivered such a great experience for them that leaving you a few words on your profile is a no-brainer thing for them. So that's what you want to do. You always want to over deliver on your Upwork projects and get those glowing reviews. And getting your first $1,000 should be a cakewalk after you get those first couple projects. So if you follow all of these things, you should be able to get your first $1,000 within, I'd say, a max of 3 Upwork projects. If it takes you more than 3 projects, you're probably not charging enough and you need to raise your rates. But yeah, if you follow these steps, you will be able to make your first $1,000, and then that $1,000 is going to get you your next $1,000, your next $10,000, and then eventually you'll be where we're at, which is we're over $100,000 and we're closing in on 200K. So it's an amazing tool. It's an amazing platform. There's a lot of pitfalls that you need to avoid, but getting your first $1,000 is fairly straightforward if you follow these steps. And in other news, I know you've been hearing us tease this for quite a while, but we will be launching our school community soon, which is where we're going to be able to give those of you who want some more assistance when it comes to Upwork, coaching, group coaching, as well as our Upwork masterclass. If this is something that you're interested in, go ahead and shoot me an email. We're not going to be able to get everyone into the pre-launch pricing, so the seats are limited. But if you're looking for some extra support, I think our school program is going to offer a lot of value. So shoot me an email and we can get you added to the pre-launch list. Otherwise, I hope this video was helpful. I hope you guys have a good, stress-free time earning your first $1,000 on Upwork. Let us know in the comments if you have any questions, and happy freelancing.